What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Backliners podcast. This Backliners podcast presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app and use code Backliners for a deposit match up to $100. It's Aggro and BaRRaCCuDDa as per usual, and this week we are joined by the community lead / community goat / just general goat, Isaiah. Isaiah, thanks so much for coming on, man. It's kind of criminal that this is the first time I think I've asked you to be on the podcast. And
I know, like right? What's going on?
I owed you an apology for that.
Nah, it's all good. I'm happy to be here.
Man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I think we should probably just start with getting a little explanation of what a community lead, or I guess a community manager that eventually turns into a community lead, does in their day-to-day work.
Cool. Well, the short answer is everything, but the long answer is no. Yeah, community managers wear a lot of hats, but if I were to summarize it in like one sentence, our main focus whenever we come into work every day is like, how do we make sure that the community is informed, engaged, and excited around whatever the heck we've got going on in Smite land, right? Whether that's from like doing update shows, or working with design team on patch notes, or doing social media posts and stuff like that. It's the main goal is making sure the community knows what we're doing, and then the vice versa of that is making sure that the crew internally knows how the community is feeling about all the stuff that we're doing. So gathering player feedback, talking with content creators and ambassadors, and kind of getting everything down and kind of whittling it down. That way the crew doesn't have to spend their entire day on Reddit, Twitch, Discord, all that stuff. Give them the summary of, how's the community feeling on any given day when it comes to Smite 1 or 2 now. And then what can we do as a team to address that feedback and make this the best Smite that we can?
Yeah, let's start there. Well, by there I mean one sentence that you said in the middle of your very informative monologue. How do I not get tilted by Reddit? That's the question that I need. I should have asked this many moons ago, all the time. How do you, let's phrase it this way, how do you manage to not get tilted by some of the things?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, for sure. It comes with a lot of practice, maybe a little bit of alcohol every now and again, but no, it's a lesson that a lot of community managers have to kind of learn whenever they're looking to kind of get into this field. It can be tough to go on Reddit and just see whatever's happening in the community just getting slammed for people not liking it or whatever. So it's the first step is just kind of like removing yourself from it and remembering like they're not particularly mad at you as a person, right? Like you have to remember at the end of the day, like it's not you that they're yelling at. They're upset about whatever circumstance is happening, but it's all isolated within the game, right? So removing yourself and taking yourself out of it and kind of looking at it at a bigger picture is kind of like the first step. And then once you can do that, you can really start to identify what's the real reason people are tilted, right? Like in between all the curse words and stuff like that, like what's the meat and potatoes of like why people are upset or why people are feeling a certain type of way around any given change or thing that happens in Smite, right? And really just kind of whenever you look at it from like a bullet point standpoint versus reading the entire message, it helps a lot because you can ignore the upsetness and the feelings behind the message and really get down to why they put the message in the first place, and then you can kind of isolate that, and then that's when I come talk to you and be like, hey, they're mad about this is why they're mad, right? Like that's another big thing is I really try in my communications with the team avoid saying, hey, people are mad about this. Like I really try to come with the reason first, like, hey, I think people aren't really vibing about this because X, right? Versus just saying, hey, people are mad. I don't know what to do. What are we gonna do?
Yeah. Wow, this must suck for you guys. They're real mad. Anyways, see ya. Like, I'm out. Yeah, no, definitely much more helpful than that. Yeah, I just I guess one of the other things I was curious about, like in this vein, is I feel like I know what types of threads are best for me to read when I'm in a mindset that I'm ready to read that type of thread.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I've ever been able to fully skip a thread I know I shouldn't read. Whether it be on Twitter or Reddit or
it's hard, right?
Like
it's like the car accident that you have to look at, right?
You got to look at it for sure. Like, what are some, like, I know I need to be in a particular state of mind to read a post about what we should do about Persephone, right?
Yeah.
Like, I got to be in a certain headspace for that. What are some of the ones, like, I imagine yours aren't so much gameplay related in that way, but maybe when people are talking extremely passionately with maybe not as much information as passion.
That's a good word to use, yeah.
About, like, the stream team setup or, like, how Smite Game does things. Like, what are your caution threads where you need to, like, take a breath beforehand?
That's a good one. I would say maybe not just for me, but anything when it comes to monetization, you have to take a breath, like, because it's important for us, but it's also important for the players because they're investing so much into Smite, and we appreciate them for that, by the way. But
yeah,
you know, I feel like the monetization team does a great job, but going into those threads and a blank slate with no emotion definitely helps.
Yeah.
Anything when it comes to, I would say now that I've kind of gotten into it, I've really started to address any design feedback threads like that too. Just because we've getting on the community side, we're getting more involved in like play tests and balance meetings and stuff like that. So being sure I come with an open mind and objective head when it comes to those threads. That way I'm just the best informed and the least biased whenever I'm taking that feedback back to y'all, you know?
Yep. Yes, those are those can be challenging though, for sure. You and me are probably just in our separate homes, like reading with the exact same expression on our faces. Like,
yep,
you know, I see where they're coming from, but couldn't we have said this a little kinder? You know,
right? You know,
with a little bit more like tact. At times,
yeah.
But you know,
I will say I feel like the community overall has gotten a lot better. I remember when I first joined the community team. Oh my goodness, it was rough
when
for a green Isaiah who had never done community before in his life, coming over from QA and just kind of inheriting the community team. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, what's going on? Why is everyone mad? Like, but no, it just takes some time and practice. And I think the community has grown alongside us, you know, and like, I feel like a lot of the legwork that we've done on our side with being a lot more transparent has really helped the community in that front too.
Yeah. What season did you move to community?
Ooh, gosh, what? Because I moved in October. I believe I moved at the end of season 4.
End of season 4. Isn't it so funny? I don't know if it's just a me thing, but I don't ask people what year things happened around high res. It's what season of Smite did that happen?
Oh yeah,
like
it was
so
October 2017. I do remember the year. It was 2017. So
2017. So yeah, what we can say 2013 was season 1. So yeah, right around then. Yeah, season 4. That was right around when I started getting more involved in balance meetings as well, which, you know, up to you if you decide if it's a coincidence that everyone was so angry at the time.
I know, right? Oh, that's what it was. It was you.
It was me. Yes, it was me. And I've been messing it up ever since. But people were much angrier then. And I do think the community has gotten noticeably better. But I think it's a little interesting because I see so much more negativity elsewhere among, not, you know, obviously the internet as a whole, but like, Bear and I have talked about it a lot on this podcast where I feel like that we had a pretty negative sentiment at times, not all the time. And I don't think the community was negative. I think that it was just negative about some of the decisions that we were making internally about direction of the game or balance or whatever it may be. I thought Smite was more critical than most gaming communities at that time. But now I think our community is more understanding and forgiving than most communities are right now. Like, it's kind of been this, like, shifts. Would you agree with that, Isaiah? And why do you think that is?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think it's going back to my note about being transparent, but the Smite community is a unique community to where it's pretty large, but it's pretty isolated, you know, like it's really close knit, and like it very rarely kind of like spreads throughout the other, you know, universes in the gaming sphere on the internet. And going back to what I said earlier, I feel like us kind of making the decision like, hey, we're going to be a lot more transparent with the community. We're going to be a lot more communicative with the community. We're going to, you know, really dive in, especially when it comes to Smite 2, us releasing videos every week on like how games are made and how we're going about approaching making Smite 2 and how much work goes into it. I feel like us communicating that to players really lets them understand like making games is like really hard, man. Like it's a miracle that, you know, Smite 2 is a thing in the first place, and you know, to think that now we have to worry about what people feel about it forever, like it's a really big task for the team. And I feel like us making that decision to just talk with players and be authentic with them has really kind of helped the telephone communication when it comes from us to Titan Forge back to the community, and then the community back to us at Titan Forge has just helped out tenfold.
Yeah,
I
BaRRa.
feel like it's an age thing. Sorry, I was waiting
That
for you
No,
guys.
please do. No, I was.
Yeah, I don't want to cut you guys off.
No, I was going to ask you your thoughts.
Because I feel like a lot of Smite players have been playing the same game for a very long time, and as Isaiah said, we have a very dedicated fan base. It's also very isolated, so I feel like our players have the ragey ones, or the really negative Twitch chatters. I feel like they have just moved on. Because in the beginning of streaming, I think between like season 2, 3, and 4, I got more Smite is dying, or you're playing a dead game, or a lot more trash talk towards me than I got from season 6 onwards. And it was just a lot more toxicity on stream and a lot more toxicity in game. Even in the ranked games I've been playing, or not anymore, the ranked games I've played towards the end of my career, a lot of players just didn't really care if you won or lost, as long as you weren't being really toxic to each other. Like you would have the games where people are just spamming F6, but that's pretty standard. If you're losing by like 5 or 10k, people will just do that. But yeah, I feel like our community has matured a lot, and also I think the people that complain a lot don't get echoed as much anymore. And I also feel like the pro players and content creators have done a much better job than they were before of kind of circling the negativity that was going around a few seasons ago. I don't know if you guys remember. It was all like the Smite's dead or Smite is X, Y, or Z. It was just it was like a few months of just YouTube negativity and Twitch negativity.
Yeah.
And I feel like that has moved on, thankfully. And I feel like the people that are still playing Smite to this day are very dedicated and also forgiving, because they know how Smite was in the past and how much it's grown as a community as well as a game, to where it can be kind of functioning as its own entity now instead of what it was before.
Yeah, I agree with you, BaRRa. Like Smite's been around for over 10 years, right? Like, and I know a lot of players that have been playing that entire time, right? Off and on, of course. Some people have Smite's been their main game for over 10 years, right? And the community growing, you know, growing up, you know, in quotation marks, I think definitely has a hand in that. And I think, you know, not to keep going back to the same thing, but with us communicating out to players, whenever we do see those negative comments and those questions and things like that, I feel like us being so open to being communicative and having all this information out there for players to read or watch or listen to, players definitely help us out on the side when it comes to information spread, right? So whenever players are upset about a certain aspect of the game, players can go back, oh, well, they said this on this Dev Insight show 2 weeks ago, or, oh, you didn't read the patch notes from X update where they wrote this down. So definitely that comes with age, of course, too, but definitely kudos to the players who help us with, you know, information spread, because it can definitely be tough to keep up with all the information that's out there.
Yeah, I think... Oh, sorry, go ahead, BaRRa.
I was gonna ask, what are your other avenues of collecting information besides Twitch and Reddit, or are there other avenues of information?
Yeah, absolutely. So Twitch, Reddit, our official Discord. We've got surveys that get sent out, that are linked in game that are sent out, on a routine basis. Uh, a lot of talking, just discussion on a day-to-day basis with the Smite Ambassador group, talking with them on a day-to-day basis. And really just perusing Steam comments, like things that you wouldn't even think of, like reading Steam forums, like it's curious. This is another not known thing when it comes to community management. We handle all the messaging when it comes to all the platforms. So like all those Steam news posts, the community team handles. Xbox has their own like community clubs where people can post comments in. PlayStation has like a news hub as well where the community team monitors and makes posts in there too. So we really like to monitor all those different avenues and see what people are playing, see what people are talking about, regardless of the platform.
Isaiah, you've been so nice and so kind, and I'm going to immediately get you in deep trouble
oh my gosh. Here we go.
If you had to, and you do, say which platform, on average, has the most intelligent feedback. Not the best, but like maybe you feel like they're putting the most thought into it. Are you finding those? I mean, we know YouTube comments are not going to be the answer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's another thing that we read YouTube comments and
like
stuff.
YouTube comments gotta be the worst. Like, I don't know. Yeah. If you're a YouTube commenter on our videos and you're nice, we appreciate you. But also, like, what made you start leaving YouTube comments? Like, I've always wondered, like, what makes someone start leaving YouTube comments? That's a whole subsection of person. But yeah, like, what... are the Steam reviews like those people are cooking? Like, give me the hierarchy if you could.
It depends, right? On any given day. I would say probably, and this will probably be surprising to you. Like, I guess it's probably just in the nature in which it's posted, but like, I would have to say a lot of our best feedback comes from Reddit, and you might find that surprising, but I think it's the format. People have to really take their time to curate their post in a way that's going to get upvotes that people are going to either agree with or disagree with. And also Reddit is a lot more, I guess, permanent, or it lives in the space for a longer amount of time, right? Yeah. Like when it comes to Discord, that Discord chat moves so fast, it's right? Impossible. And it's hard for you to. A lot of time, people are just trolling in there anyway, which is completely fine. I love Discord trolling. Right. I love seeing the memes and the gifs and all that stuff. But Reddit is probably the top one. There are lots of insightful and thoughtful posts when it comes to Reddit, for sure.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of good things that come out of Reddit. We've definitely learned a lot of like good lessons and had ideas that have come from Reddit for sure. There are also, there's two sides of the coin.
There are two sides of every coin,
right, exactly. But no, I was just kind of hoping you'd be like, yes, dude, the PlayStation community hub, like they've got geniuses over there, bro. Like they know what's up. But yeah, I didn't know that each platform had its own like audience too. That's interesting. When it comes to sorry, go ahead, Barry.
I was gonna ask, have you always been this happy reading comments, or is that just kind of like did you like turn off the brain at some point and you're just like I cannot be happy while I'm reading this? Like,
yeah, you definitely get jaded at a certain point. It was probably year 2 for me whenever I was in the community, and then you just like, oh, here we go again. You grab the coffee and you go for it. But no, I think at the end of the day, I find it fun because at the end of the day, I've been playing Smite for a long time. As with a lot of other people on the Titan Forge staff, I came from the community as well. I was a console arena slammer in college, and like,
wow.
Got the opportunity to work at Hi-Rez and is just so excited about it. So at the end of the day, I love just reading what other people are thinking about the game because I'm a huge fan of it still to this day. I play all the time. So that helps, being able to enjoy what you're reading about, even when you may not agree with some of the stuff you're reading, for sure.
Man, this is like kind of off topic, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but you know, we're in year 1 of this podcast. It happens. Mifflin has sent me a screenshot of a bug report that he saw yesterday, I think, and someone submitted a bug that a Willix was immuning damage when she used her 2. And it was like this really long post about how, first of all, Tank Willix is really OP. And then, plus this bug of her being able to immune damage with her 2 is game breaking. And Miff was like, how do we tell them that it says it on the tooltip? Like,
it's a feature, you know?
Like, what is going on? Twitch chat says there's a chance that person can vote. Yes.
Very true.
Yes. Yeah, that's honestly moments like that help me read some like truly mean comments or something like that, because like some people just don't know what's happening around them. You know what I mean? Like, I was saying to Joe the other day, I read a comment on Twitter, and I assume everyone is like a 20-ish-year-old person who like is an adult and like can think clearly. But sometimes you realize like this person responding to me is like 11. Or you know
That's
what I
true,
mean?
yeah,
like,
I think you have to be 13 to make an account. That's it. You know?
Right?
Like,
yeah, 13. Yeah, and of course everyone listens to those rules. Like it's so funny how that things like that can put it into perspective pretty quickly. You mentioned playing a lot of Arena in college, Isaiah. Did you intend to go into game dev whenever you were going to college? Like, what was your
No,
major?
yeah, I was actually a film/motion graphics student. I was going to school for video production and post production stuff. So like video editing and like After Effects stuff. Got an internship. It was cool, and then ended up graduating. Yeah, and I was like, yeah, I could find a job here, but Hi-Rez just happened to be at the job fair. And I was like, no way, I play Smite. You guys are in Georgia? Because that was before we put the peach on the home screen.
Gosh.
So I had no idea, and I was like, yo, this would be sick if I could work at Hi-Rez. And I got lucky. I applied a few times, ended up starting in customer support. Worked in support for about a year, then I worked in QA, focusing on console stuff for about 9 months, and then moved over to community.
That's really cool. Yeah, I know. I mean, that must be where you get your impeccable acting skills that we've seen over the years.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like in all those videos.
Making those videos in college for sure.
The diehard ripoffs that we've done over the years, which
I know.
Just
our video team are geniuses.
the best. Absolutely unhinged geniuses over there.
I know.
No doubt about it. I wanted to ask also about the transition from Smite 1 to Smite 2, because, you know, obviously a lot of the job of let's get people excited about this, that part I feel like is automatically covered out the door.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Like,
yeah.
you don't have to worry about marketing to Smite players in that way. But what were some of the first things when it was like, hey, we're doing Smite 2 and we have to like start preparing some things that you were like, oh my god, I'm going to have to figure out how to do this and how we're going to do this? Like, what were some of the top things on your list that you feel like needed to be addressed on the move?
Yeah, so a lot of the things that we were thinking about really came to, one, like how we were going to handle like social media. Like, there are lots of things that got tossed around. Like, do we make multiple accounts? Do we make new Smite 2 social accounts and split everything together? And then are we going to change our communication style and cadence when it comes to Smite 2 since it's a new game? We ultimately made the decision, just keep everything under one umbrella. Just one, because it's easier. And I feel like it's just easier for a player to keep track of just one account versus trying to follow multiple different Twitch and Twitter, or X, sorry, Elon, and Discord.
We don't have to apologize to him here. We're cool. Elon slander is actually encouraged on this podcast.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just ended up keeping everything under one umbrella when it comes to like all of our social media and like communications and stuff like that. And then the biggest thing was when I heard we were, you know, it was a real deal, like Smite 2 is gonna happen. Like, the first thing that I started thinking about with the crew and like got some insight from AJ on design and a lot of the leads and executive producers, is like, how are we going to talk to players and set expectations for this new thing? Like, how are we going to effectively communicate that Smite is a true sequel, not just some update? Smite 1 still going to be supported. How are we going to really knock this announcement out of the park and get buy-in from players that, hey, this is the direction that we need to go in order to make sure that the Smite, we want to make continues on for another 10 years, right? So, Aggro, how many times in the last 3 months have you heard this is a true alpha?
I mean, triple digits easily.
Yeah.
Like, maybe even four digits.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest things that came out of all of our discussions, was really setting the expectation that, hey, whenever this game comes out and is playable for the first time, it's going to be a true alpha. Like, it's not just some early access thing that we're wanting people to pay to pre-order for to get access to play. Like, we really want to build this game with the community, because it's so important for a game like Smite that's so intricate and so complicated and has so many different systems, to really work with the community and get their feedback to ultimately build the game that they want to play, because that's what we want to do. Because at the end of the day, if nobody wants to play the game, why are we making it? So really working on our communication style and figuring out how can we really sell Smite 2 while communicating, hey, it's going to be a little bit rough at the end, at the beginning, but also building excitement at the same time, right? Because it could be a tough scale to balance. How do we communicate, hey, this game is going to be really buggy and rough around the edges, while also getting people excited about it and making them want to play?
Right, like, for real, come like play, but also like you're gonna fall through the map at some point.
Yeah.
Like, don't get mad. Like,
right. Yeah.
That is definitely,
it's a true alpha. Remember?
True alpha. Right. True alpha moment. True alpha moment. No doubt about it. Yeah, I think that's definitely been one of my like big hopes. I was saying it a couple weeks ago here on the podcast. Like, I just really hope players understand that the game has a long way to go. And I was really pleasantly surprised by the reaction to the first full alpha weekend.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think any of us, no one would be foolish enough to expect it or even hope that it could go that well. And then I was saying, I really hope that people also understand that Alpha Weekend 2, not everything is going to be magically done. Like, I think the first one, it's like, yeah, it's alpha, like, whatever. Someone's going to still feel like the game is, we didn't address a balance point enough, or we didn't add enough new items, or they're still experiencing a similar bug or something like that, and be like, oh, those lazy idiots aren't doing anything over there. Like,
they're not reading any of our comments.
Right. Like, I hope that that's my big hope, is that they can. And I say this oftentimes like tongue in cheek, but I really do mean it in this sense. That is a lot to ask of a player.
Yeah.
Like, it is a lot to ask to keep in mind that they feel like so much time has passed, but because of branch dates and content locks and all that kind of stuff, like, we have significantly less time to react to things than it seems like we do. And so I don't blame players who get frustrated by those types of things, or, that we can't react to meta shifts from main patch to bonus balance or something like that. Like, all of that tracks to me. I just also wish, I'm just staying hopeful, for Alpha Weekend too.
How many times, Isaiah, do you have to hear about something before you start to... I say it's a design thing. I say that Guan 3 is really busted. Is it after one comment you start relaying that information, or is it after several, or you see in a few Twitch chats, or is it just kind of like a per case basis of how angry that person is in particular?
Yeah, it goes on it's kind of on a case-by-case basis, right? Because I guess it just depends on, like, what the note of feedback is and, like, what it's on, right? So, like, if I see a note of feedback on character that's been notorious for having balance issues in the past, right? Like maybe a little bit less, things that I need to see out in the world before I bring it up to somebody. But, for the most part, I really like to scope and see. Identifying trends is tricky because you've got to think about the community as a whole, right? And like you can really get carried away and like focusing on a single platform and kind of going down the rabbit hole there when that may not be the bigger picture and when it comes to the full community, right? So if I start to see the same thing across multiple different platforms, that's when I start to say, okay, hey, maybe this is an issue. So like if it's just on Reddit for a little bit, yeah, maybe I'll jot it down, and then if I hear, something in the balance meeting from Max saying, "Hey, this character's doing a little bit well or doing poorly, and it's kind of out of the norm," maybe then I'll bring it up and say, "Oh, well, I did hear people talking about Guan being a little bit busted. Like maybe there's some correlation there." But for the most part, if I start to see it across Reddit and Twitch and Discord and in the Steam comments and on YouTube and stuff like that, that's when I'll start to flag stuff to the team.
Yeah, and if you think Guan 3 is busted, you're like nodding along to this post. You're like, yeah, dude, that guy owned me in Arena last night. Like, this guy's spitting right now. Like, surely you're bringing it up in that situation if you think so. I do have I've got a couple more questions, including one I don't know if you'll allow me to ask. But before we get into that, I'm sure you've been wondering since the beginning of the show, what is Prize Picks? I told you about this unbelievable deal where you can download the Prize Picks app and use code BackLiners for a deposit match up to $100. I told you about that 31 minutes ago, and I haven't come back to it, which I know is criminal. So Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It is the most fun, exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. And they don't just have traditional sports. They also have lots of esports things like Counter-Strike, Apex Legends, Valorant, League of Legends, and Call of Duty. They've got things set up for you could have gotten in on League of Legends Mid-Season Invitational or on the Toronto Ultra Call of Duty Major that's coming up very, very soon. That's going to be really, really fun to play along with. You can do things like picking Hydra for more than 54.5 maps, 1 to 3 kills, and Simp for more than 23.5 maps, 1 kills. It's that easy to just play along with some of the biggest events out there. Football training camp starting up. I'm sure you're going to be able to play along when football season starts up, and that'll be a lot of fun. NBA playoffs are nearing their conclusion. Plenty of good things there. And you can also win. You can use their star players system on Prize Picks to keep an eye out for those starred players, and you can receive a 10% payout boost if they're in your winning lineup. So really, really cool way to play along with some of your favorite players. So download the app today and use code BackLiners for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, use code BackLiners for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Big shout out to Prize Picks there. Okay, I'm not going to get to my spicy question quite yet, but I've got at least a couple more. When you started getting ready to step in and start hosting patch notes, I remember working with you a little bit at that time. What was your immediate reaction whenever the team came to you and was like, "Yo, we want community to start handling the patch notes hosting. Aggro is too unhinged to continue to do it"?
Oh, I was terrified. I had never done any sort of hosting or anything like that before. All the videos and stuff that I had been in the past were pre-recorded. So the idea of like, oh, I'm going to be live for 2.5 hours every other Wednesday, and I've got to remember all these things and make sure that we're hitting all these points, because the update shows are like a super important marketing beat for us, and like it's kind of like a big thing and some big shoes to fill, because like we've got an amazing talent team, of course. When we had one at the time, and I was just like, Okay. That's one thing about, Titan Forge is, you got the opportunity to do anything. And sometimes you gotta just go with the flow and just learn on the fly and go. Thankfully we did have some really awesome training sessions that eased a lot of the initial nervousness, but Aggro, I'm sure you can, identify with, that first time having to go live on stream and do the thing.
Yeah.
I almost threw up, I think. I forget what show it was. But yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, no, I remember being stressed when they asked me to start hosting patch notes, for sure, because, you realize, like, hey, this is how we all get paid. Like, this is the number one way we make money, is by people watching these things and being excited about the content we're releasing. So you know it's a big deal and you don't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
But I think you probably eventually realized what I did, which was we don't execute well at Titan Forge when we take ourselves too seriously. Like,
exactly.
The more relaxed and okay with messing up you are, and that, I mean, of course that's true in like almost anything, right? Like, being willing to make mistakes is one of the best ways to make less mistakes. But particularly at Titan Forge, like,
oh yeah,
if you drop an F-bomb by accident and just laugh, like, no one's gonna be mad at you.
Exactly,
like,
and chat's in on the joke. They're spamming Keck W's, like, it's all good.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. No, that was you stepped in and did it. Like, you blew me away, to be honest, with how well you stepped in, and you. It's very hard for people to come in and be themselves on camera, and you adapted to that very quickly. And it's the best way. Like, it's just the best way to be genuine. And being genuine is like the number one thing. I could get into on-camera philosophy and why you need to be trustworthy, and that's why you don't hide your hands or rock too much or look away, like all these types of things. But you killed it. You don't got to worry about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm very surprised hearing that you hadn't done that before.
Yeah, never. Yeah,
watching you do it seemed very natural to me. As a very awkward person on camera most of the time. You seem a lot more natural than I was my first time, so I'm very impressed.
When was your first time on camera, Barry? Was it like launch?
Well, I had streamed before that, but yeah, it was launch.
Okay. How nervous were you for launch? How have I never asked you that question?
Yeah, I'm curious. Like,
but you had played at LAN before, right? You played at Halo LANs.
Yeah, I played a Halo LAN, a local Halo LAN. So I would have been more nervous if we were a bad team, I think. And funnily enough, I got a lot more nervous after we won Worlds. Because there were now, like, so much expectations on me. Sorry. Isaiah, what percentage of the community would you say is important to keep happy? Because 100% is obviously not reachable, but obviously that would be nice if everyone would be happy.
We would love to keep everyone happy. And I feel like you've got to accept that, like, of course, 100. It's impossible to have 100% of the community happy at any given time. But I don't know, like, it's tough.
Yeah, because you have to deal with. I mean, to give you time to think, it was like last year we had the mage solo meta versus the warrior solo meta. And it's like, how are you going to keep all the noobs happy that are like, why are these mages in my role and why are they so much better than me? What am I supposed to do? I'm just like a warrior player. I just play on the weekends, like, how do you keep those players happy whenever they start, or whenever the, I guess, SPL meta or meta that shifts their style of play? I don't even, maybe that's just a game designer question the more I'm talking about it, but, or is there a way
it's probably a combination, right?
Okay, okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Isaiah, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's definitely tricky, and I guess going back to it, we have to look at everything on the community side, like on a case-by-case basis, right? So it's hard to give, like, an umbrella answer, and I guess the cop-out answer is, like, the percentage, the amount of the community that is ideal to keep happy is the amount that gets people to stop complaining about something. You know, like
That's good. That's a really good answer. Honestly, I gave you a really hard question.
Yeah, that is a good answer.
That's a very community manager answer.
Like when
PR training.
When the complaint threads only get to like page 3 of Reddit, not the top page, you're like,
exactly,
we're good.
You know, like
because then they stop posting about it as much, right? If they're not getting as much like support, people do tend to move on. Well, speaking of that PR training, Isaiah, here's the question that you are welcome to tell me. No, I'm not going to answer that. Why in the world would you ever ask me it? But I've always been curious, and I legitimately do not know the answer. There's one tweet in the history of the Smite game Twitter that is more notorious than any other.
Oh my gosh.
It may or may not involve Freya and Cerberus.
Right.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, that tweet.
What do you remember about that incident
my gosh.
that you can share with us publicly? Because I literally want to know.
We can address the Cerberus in the room. I just the first thing that I remember when you bring up the topic is me waking up at 3 a.m. to I forget who the message was from, but all the message was hacked in all caps. And no other context or anything. And I'm just like, what? Hacked? What do you mean? And then I started to dig into it a little bit more, and I was like, oh my goodness, what in the world happened? So, and it was definitely a fun day afterwards, for sure. At that point, you just kind of have to like delete the tweets and like go back to sleep and just hope that it didn't get too bad in the morning. But
yeah.
Just hope that no one saw it.
Yeah. To this day, I don't know how it happened or why it happened or, or what went down. But I would like to clarify, there were a lot of rumors going around that like people got fired over that. No, nobody got fired. Like, one of the things that I feel like Hi-Rez Titanforge is really good about, and I feel like it's just a good rule to live by in general, is like mistakes are okay, and like, of course, when they're completely out of your control, right? Like, of course, we did our own kind of thing internally to kind of dig in to see what happened. But, like, at the end of the day...
Yeah, if no one's given a password out, like,
right,
short of doing that,
gotta...
like, if it's going to be a mistake. And, you know, some would say there's no such thing as bad press, right?
That's true.
I wouldn't.
Got a few articles written about it, you know, like a few extra eyes on the account for the rest of the week.
We need to have done a deep dive on how much that earned us, you know, that tweet.
Oh, I know,
and then
right?
do a cost-benefit analysis of how bad for sponsorships it is and for crossovers and that kind of stuff. Yeah. But if more people are getting excited about Smite in one way or another, maybe that should be our brand identity going forward. You know,
I know. Who knows? You know, Smite 2 isn't out yet. Maybe we pivot. You know.
Yeah, that's one option for us. I suppose.
Oh man.
I didn't know.
I mean, it just reminds me like. The Twitterverse is just like, did you all see that Cult of the Lamb tweet that went nuts like a few months ago? Like stuff like that, you know, it's crazy how stuff like that pops off.
Yeah, did they tweet it initially or did someone tweet at them? It was something like at 20,000 likes or followers or whatever, we'll add sex to the game or something like that, right?
They tweeted it initially, yeah.
What do you think happened to that community manager to be like, I'm gonna tweet this, you know?
Oh my goodness,
like,
yeah.
I don't know. I was thinking about that. Like, I feel like video game social media presence is so varied, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there are just, I mean, Among Us, I think a lot of people credit their social team as being the reason, that game, like, popped off because they just had the right person in the right place with the right tone. And it got people really interested in the game because of their viral tweets. But it's also, for every success story like that, there are like 30 crashed and burned brands that have tried to be funny and relatable and just end up being cringe and, you know, unlikable and over the top and all that kind of stuff. Like, and I feel like the Smite brand over the years has towed that line pretty well, where like if there's a free meme out there where like it just fits perfectly, like we're gonna toss it out,
we'll let it fly, you know? Yeah.
Right. But for the most part, it's a little bit more like buttoned up, but not as buttoned up as I'd say like, you know, Overwatch, I feel like is very like corporate.
Yeah.
Which is not an inherent negative, but in comparison to the rest of the gaming space, like what are your like kind of thoughts on that spread of options that video game companies have for their social media presence?
Yeah, it's you've got a lot of different varied approaches you can go. You can go like the super cringe meme lord like Opera GX is doing right now. The fun Among Us Fall Guys approach to where everything is jokes and then a little bit of in between being buttoned up and kind of memey like we're doing on the Smite side of things. And then like you mentioned earlier, a lot of games are just kind of like, okay, we're just gonna shoot straight with you. Here's what we're gonna do. Here's the post for the day, etc. It's all about kind of just like working with your internal teams on like identifying what your brand is and what your brand voice is what we call it, like how your brand talks to its consumers, and then just kind of knowing your audience and figuring out how they want to be talked to, right? Like if you try something and it doesn't fly, you know, maybe you try something else and go a different direction. And then it's a lot of trial and error and kind of figuring out, you know, how the conversation is going to go, right? It's a lot like meeting a new person for the first time. It's like, all right, how are they going to vibe? How are they going to vibe with you? How far across the line can you go with your jokes and stuff like that before it's a little bit too far? And then you kind of rein it back in. But then, you know, really kind of at the end of the day, just being authentically yourself or the brand is what's going to resonate the most with the community, because they want to hear from you, you know, not just like some wacky meme lord or like some buttoned up like super corporate guy, right? They want to hear from who is, you know, Titan Forge and who is Smite at the end of the day. So it's a lot of trial and error, knowing your audience, knowing your brand, and figuring out where to go from there.
And look, if you get it wrong, you just text hacked in all caps.
Exactly right. Yeah.
That's all you gotta do.
Oh man.
Baron, do you have any other questions?
I had a question, then you just took it away.
No way you're asking about
No
way you're gonna ask about servers for a tweet, bro.
No.
Oh, okay.
I had a question, and then your joke just like
you lost it.
Sorry.
It just took it out.
Oh, unlucky. Well, we can see if you get inspired by some of the random questions of the week from our Patreon Discord. Patreon.com/backliners is the place to go. You want us there. We only have one question right now, but it is a very good one. It's from Moi. This is from last week's show that we didn't quite get to, but this is kind of perfect because you're a music guy as well, Isaiah, right? I know you're a big anime guy. Moi was asking if we listened to the Kendrick diss tracks. And
my gosh, nuts! Kendrick won the beef by far.
It wasn't even close, right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's just, you're not, you can be a big Drake fan, and that's like, that's fine. You can't try and tell me that objectively Kendrick's work wasn't just strictly better.
Exactly.
Like,
just
it was
strictly better.
It was strictly better. It was like Smite 1 to Smite 2. Like Smite 2 strictly better.
Right?
You know what I mean? It was devastating though. Like
I couldn't right?
Man, I feel like Drake did not understand the situation.
He wasn't ready. Like, oh my goodness. And we were talking about social media. Talk about a fun time being on social media when all that stuff was going down, right? It was insane.
Yeah. It was really, really crazy. Can you imagine, like, you know, we've got a big surprise like announcement, like a big crossover or something like that. And you're like working on it for weeks and you tweet it out and you're like really excited about it. And then immediately, like 10 minutes after you drop the tweet, like, I don't know what even the comparison would be. Like, they announce a new Dark Souls game, like, right away. Or, like, Minecraft 2 gets announced. There we go.
Right?
Minecraft 2. Roblox 2 and Minecraft 2 are combining to make Mindblocks 2.
Mindblocks.
And everything, you're like, yes, I feel really good about it. Oh my God, we've lost. Like, just just devastating.
Yeah, at that point you just like kind of cry in the club for a little bit, you know. Like it is what it is.
It's like the Bruce Willis gif of just like drying your tears with money, you know, like that's. I'm sure that's exactly what Drake was doing. BaRRa, give me your take on the Kendrick Drake beef.
Yeah, I don't know that much about it. I just know what I've read on tweets, and I listened to the one Kendrick song that has the very famous lyric in it now.
Yeah.
That Destiny would just walk around the house saying it like nonstop. She would just sing that one lyric just around the house, and I was like, okay. But the song is really good, and Drake, if everything was true, is just like just
obviously,
weird behavior. Like, just I don't get it at all.
It's so crazy. Like, there was a story that like Drake's label like reached out and was like, "Yo, can we stop?
Y'all gotta stop."
Like,
Yeah.
when your label's begging for you to stop, like,
I know, right?
How could? And here's the thing. I'm sure it's tempting for Kendrick in that position to then make another song about, your label came out, you've given up, like, I've embarrassed you. But, like, it's kind of baller to just not even do it. Like,
I know, right? Yeah.
You know,
he's like, I'm done. Yeah.
It's so clear that he won that, like, I don't need to waste my effort or time on that, which is, like, hilarious to me.
Yeah, Kendrick won for sure. And also, anytime beef like that comes out, it's just really entertaining. If you're in the beef, it feels really bad. Yeah. Or in the drama, it feels really bad. But if you're just watching it go down, it's really entertaining.
Yeah. What are some good, like, esports beefs over the years that were like that? The one I think of immediately is, like, really old school, like, Modern Warfare 2 competitive with, like, Envy and Optic, like, those two really hating each other. And, like, when that... I don't think it was Envy, but it was like Parasite's team, and they were yelling at Envy, like, "Zip 'em up" was a classic line. Like, my friends and I used to say that all the time. Like, that esports beef does all, like, you're right. Beef just goes hard, like, in all senses.
If you ever watched Gears of War esports, yo, that was some intense beef right there.
Bro.
Yeah, it'd be insane.
Console beef is just always better than PC beef. Like, it is not close. Like, the console lands back in the day, man, for Smite, we've talked about it a lot. Like, those guys would just get up and yell at each other in the middle of a game, like, all the time. And the best, like, PC beef was, like, you know, Kenneth's, like, taking Kid from a candy, or, like, Mask, like, DJ Pern had a couple moments, like, but nothing like, you know, watching Mifflin and Kenshin, like, stand up out of their chairs and, like, yell at each other. You know what I mean? Like, those were the days, you know?
Yeah, people always say that's cringe whenever the clips come up, but I always love that kind of energy and that.
For sure.
I don't want to say passion, because that's just a cringy word now.
It's the pop-offs, right? Like, I love, like, watching, like, the FGC and their pop-offs and stuff.
Bro, did you see Hungrybox, like, picking up the chair? My man's went too far with that pop-off.
Oh,
that was too... You don't gotta do that much, man. Like, was that even a major? I don't even think that was a major, was it?
It wasn't. I think it was, like, a local or something.
Yeah,
it was
too much, man. There's too much hype. Like, you know, I'm saying that while being very hypocritical, because watching Cuvo Fred obliterate a Maxonomic chair was like...
Oh, yeah. Rip to that Maxonomic chair for sure.
Dude, rest in peace, Cuvo's Maxonomic chair. That was a great moment. Well, Isaiah, thanks so much for coming on, man. Really appreciate it. You know, I was going to ask, like, where people can find you, but, like, at Smite Game, am I right? Like, that's...
Right, yeah.
That's
at Smite Game, for sure. Yeah.
And, of course, at Isaiah the Sage on Twitter for Isaiah's personal account. I'm sure you won't be busy at all, you know, in the upcoming
we got
weeks.
Nothing going on, you know, like...
What are you doing at work? You know, me eating snacks, nothing else going on. That's all I've got.
Playing Commander, you know.
Yes. Are we playing Commander this Friday, Isaiah? You play? It's been a couple of weeks since you
I'm
played.
I'm off on Friday, so you'll have to get a game in without me.
You keep ducking us, man. It's crazy.
I'm sorry, man. I had to take the 4-day weekend while it was in front of my face, you know.
Yes, no, I respect that for sure. Well, enjoy your Friday off. You certainly earned it. And thanks so much for coming on. We will be back next week, I believe, with a show. So hopefully you'll see you all then. But until next time, shout out Prize Picks one more time for being our sponsor for this week's episode. Until then, BaRRa, you know what to do.
Bye.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Perfect.
sir.
Perfect.
That was,
Well
I mean, how clean was that?
I'm really hungry, but that was pretty good.
That was a good one.
Couldn't tell at all.
Like a 7 out of 10.
A consummate professional.
Thank you.